Hello everyone and welcome to Tome of Uselessness. I'm Dan, solo casting, and today's topic is the International 9 for Dota 2. It just finished up a couple weeks ago. It took place in Shanghai, China. It was first time out there. Usually it takes place, of course, in Seattle, Key Arena, but last year was in Vancouver. And then this year, like I said, they were in Shanghai, China. And it was in one of their ginormous stadiums. I think it was Mercedes-Benz Stadium, but it seats, like 125,000 people or something crazy. So it would have been a cool scene to be there live, but watched all of it as best as I could with a time difference. So 16 teams gathered there to battle for the prize pool. It was quite large, $34.3 million, which I think every year, at least the last few years, they always break some kind of esports record. The prize pool, of course, is mostly crowdfunded, which is always impressive. Shows that there is still a large community and a lot of support for the game. The games were really good. Every year at the International, there's always high-level Dota that's played, and really good games, really good strats, really good skills. But I think this International in particular stood out to me because even the lower-tier teams still did really well and competed with the top-tier teams. Because a lot of times there's always a couple teams that just don't really do well at all. And to be fair, the first round for the lower bracket stuff, it's all like single elimination. So you don't really get to see them, develop and become better. But there were some teams that stood out that usually you'd expect to get crushed, and they did really well. So it was a lot of fun to watch. I follow the DPC scene as best as I can. So I really do enjoy the International when it all comes together. And these top teams are battling out for this really large prize. So speaking of, the winners, of course, were huge congratulations to them, Team OG. That comprises of No-Tail, Seb, Jerax, Anna, and Topson. They basically cemented themselves in Dota history by becoming the first two-time TI champions, which was incredible because up to this point, no one has been able to do it as even a player, moving from team to team. No team has done it. No organization has ever won it twice. And OG did it back to back and as the same team, which is just doubly impressive, considering that their DPC season wasn't the greatest. They weren't, the top favorite essentially going in. Even I didn't peg them as like a top tier contender. But it was the same like last year after the fallout when they lost some of their players. They had to rebuild their team, go through the open qualifiers, and then they made it all the way to the end. This year, they didn't have to go through as strenuous of a process, but they looked really good in all their games, just playing confident and having, memeing it up and having a good time, essentially. And it was pretty incredible to see them just dominate, essentially. And they were winning some games just so handily, whereas many of the other games or series were always quite close. They defeated Team Liquid 3-1 in the finals. It was best of 5. They barely lost the first game, and I remember after watching that first game thinking, I was like, wow, Liquid really has a good shot at this, and this should be a really, good series. But OG just swept the rest of the games, just not destroyed them per se, but just played a different game at a higher level and with heroes that just weren't expected, and so it was really impressive stuff. Team Liquid, of course, made a historic lower bracket run. They did not do well in the original or the initial qualifiers, and were in a lower bracket and had to battle from one of those best of ones essentially all the way to the finals. If they had won, that would have been also a historic moment because they had players gunning for two-time championships, as well as no team has made a lower bracket run that far all the way to the finals and then won. They only dropped one game the entire way to the finals, which was very impressive. Team Liquid, of course, was Kuroki, Miracle, Wii, Mind Control, and GH. They recently lost one of their core players, Matumba Man, and picked up Wii. But as the tournament went on, like I was saying, they just looked better and better every game. Not always just like destroying their opponents, but like playing well and just winning the games that they needed to win. It was crazy, I thought, particularly for me, because I buy the compendium and you get to make predictions, and I actually predicted Liquid to win, which I don't know why I chose them, but it was basically, I remember choosing, it was between them, Liquid that is, Secret, and LGD. again, OG not on the radar. I thought Secret was looking so good coming in. They were really dominant the entire DPC season. And LGD last year came in second place and looked really strong this year as well coming into the tournament. So I mentioned the prize earlier, $34.3 million, and Team OG for winning it gets a good chunk of it here. They get $15.2 million, and Liquid got $4.3 million. It's obviously an insane amount of money for winning an esports event. It's pretty awesome. And, all the 16 teams do get something, and I think maybe even the teams that get eliminated before they even get to the main stage. I would have to double check the figures on that. It's pretty awesome that the prize is that big. And like I was saying previously, mostly crowdfunded. Valve does put up, some of their money as well as arrange the event and all that great stuff. But I would really like to see, and I've thought about this since the last couple years, especially since the prize really ballooned up, that it'd be nice to see a chunk of the money, and I don't know what percentage, but even if you knocked $4 million off of this and the teams were battling for $30 million, let's say, and you applied that money to the next year's DPC season, I think it would really help bolster the entire scene and almost encourage teams to play some of these other events, because sometimes, maybe more so in the past, but definitely some teams would just get together, try to win TI, and then would break up essentially. So if you bolstered some of these other tournaments around the world, it could really help out the scene and drive people to play these other tournaments and make them more worth their while, because I know that some teams will not travel to some tournaments because the prize pool, say it's a little low, or it's just because of the travel or the schedule. But it could be, again, more incentive to try to get there, try to win these prizes, because there'd be some more money. Plus, I would feel like our contributions to the prize pool would help the entire season and not just the one event. So I think, I don't know who to tell about that idea, but it's just something I've always had in my head where I was just like, man, that would be really nice, really help the entire season out, especially now that they have this DPC season, because previous years they were sort of just, other organizations are running tournaments and stuff like that, and they still are, but Valve now attributes these point system to it and stuff like that. So I think it could just help. It would help these other organizations as well run these tournaments, like ESO and Starladder and whoever else. I'm not 100% on every DPC/non-DPC event, but it'd be kind of cool. This TI as well, like I said, I went to the one in Vancouver. It was a lot of fun. I didn't go to the last 2 days because the ticket was quite expensive for that, but the 4 days I did go, I had such a blast. And we got to see some rematches essentially from TI8 into this year. Rematches from TI8 to this year. So OG versus EG, and that was in the quarterfinals in TI8, quarterfinals again this year. And particularly, of course, last year, as I said, that breakup, some players did go to EG from OG. So it was particularly a kind of a grudge matchy kind of situation. Here, I don't know about the feelings, but again, OG played extremely well. I always do cheer for EG because of Arteezy. He's local, so gotta cheer him on. Gotta cheer on those Canadian pros. There's not many of them in the scene right now, so I always like seeing them go far. And they played well, and dropping down the quarterfinals. Not the, you can't hang your head in shame, as it were, but they always want more, of course. And we got to see OG again play PSG LGD in the semifinals, which, if you followed in TI8, they played them in the semifinals, and the PSG LGD made it to the finals, and then they beat them again, OG that is. So this year that didn't play out, but we still got to see the semifinal match, and you could really tell that LGD wanted to do well in front of the fans. They're in China, home crowd fan, or home crowd team, as it were, out of the pressure, or they just couldn't handle it, and they just couldn't play the same game OG was playing. They lost, unfortunately, and then they lost, of course, to Liquid, who made the finals. There's a lot of drama, as usual, in every TI. There's always a lot of storylines and this and that. But I think just at the end of the day, the games were very good, very enjoyable to watch. I've already watched it again just because of the high level and the high skills involved and just the strategies and everything like that. So if you haven't checked it out, you can totally still check it out. All the VODs are out there, and there's links and etc. I think I've seen some on Twitch, YouTube. There's links everywhere. So check it out. I also really wanted to talk about, just talking about some of the strategies and stuff like that, I wanted to talk about some of the hero categories. In the compendium, you get to make predictions and stuff like that. And I thought just a few of these were kind of interesting because it shows a lot of the meta in, Snapshot now, but tournaments always kind of bring out especially TI tournament, that is, it brings out like a different outlook of the game because certain things start to matter more. At tournaments, especially in the pro games, not just synergy, but small mechanics and what have you can really start to matter. And so you get to see some different heroes or combinations that you don't always see, and these players make them work really well, and they try to, bring out these strategies when it matters, which is, like I said, TI9 matters. So I wanted to take a look at, let's take a look at the most picked heroes. So I picked, in my little predicting thing, Warlock, because I always figure supports usually make it through the drafts easier than cores do, because there's always some OP core that just gets banned every time. And so I picked a Warlock. I was wrong. The most picked was Elder Titan, number 1, Shadow Demon, number 2, Ogre Magi, 3rd, 4th, Tiny, 5, Gyro, and rounding out the top 10 here, we had Leshrac, Kunkka, Tide, Mirana, and Sand King. So I was surprised to see Elder Titan at number 1. He's definitely that hero, as it were, has been gotten a couple of good buffs, and like I was saying, pros really do like these extra mechanics that a hero like Elder Titan brings. Not only does he have the stun that like sleeps people, but his skills take away armor, and he's got I think he's got a magic resistance buff and stuff like that. So those kind of things in team fights really help out your team. So you could definitely see them being near the top. Shadow Demon as well was the support, and Ogre Magi. Like I said, I thought Warlock was, because leading up to this in the last few events, he was getting a lot of pick, but I guess, very cooldown reliant, unless you're going for some kind of push strat with the golems, not as big of a deal. But with Shadow Demon, his main skill can act as like a save or as a setup for other things, like a Mirana arrow. So I could definitely see why he gets a lot of play and high level in tournaments and pro Dota, for sure. And Ogre Magi has been on like the total up and up. He's got a good stun, he buffs up your teammates. Again, he's really tanky if you want him to be, so he can stand in the face of the enemy and just take hits and stuff like that, so your core can farm and stuff like that. That's why he's the big boy. Tiny was kind of shocking to me because he's changed a lot, because when Tiny used to get played 2 years ago especially, he was always like getting core, and then you go and you get big, and then you just hit buildings down big time. But he's definitely shifted a little bit, whereas he's usually played in the mid. He was played mid this tournament a lot, and his lockdown capability is pretty insane with his avalanche toss combo. And you just see like a player like Topson played him a ton, and he was just going around just setting up for his teammates and just getting kill after kill after kill. It was pretty intense. And Gyrocopter, I was surprised to see him as number 5, but then when I thought about it some more, it made sense because, again, there's some other cores that are just being banned out more, so it's like Gyrocopter was a really good pick for teams because he has AoE team fight ability, lots of burst damage, and he works really well with like other supports that were picked up in IO especially. That's a classic combo you see a lot at TI and high tournaments is Iro Gyro. Which leads me into my most banned, which I again picked IO because every tournament, no team wants to deal with that. Tournaments always reveals how positioning matters so much in team fights, or the ability to take out like, an enemy support or an enemy core before the fight even begins, hence the Tiny. But I always think IO because he has a global teleport, and you can take him and someone else, and you just show up anywhere, and you can just change the tide of the fight. But he was not the top. The top ban was Alchemist, which didn't shock me though, because Alchemist always, especially at TI, he's like one of those ones that people just bust out because of the gold that he brings your team and the farm that he can get, and he can just get big and get bigger and, win you fights and just shift the whole tide of the game. So wasn't shocked to see him ban number 1. Enchantress was number 2, which she played still in a ton of games because she's really strong at the moment. Pretty sure she was patched down in the next version, but her ability to do damage, heal, basically be immune from physical attack. Plus, she has I believe an aura or magic resistance capabilities as well. So again, it was not shocking to see her there. Shadow Demon was number 3 in the ban list, so really contested support for him. Mirana came up next, and then Elder Titan. So the only one that's not in the top 5 of the other one, but Mirana was picked in the top 10, so really strong heroes here. And then following out the bans is Lesh, Kunkka, Ogre Magi, Chen, and Lifestealer. And Chen didn't shock me to be in the top 10. He, again, he's got the global heal. He's taken over creeps, and then you can just send them on to, doing missions and just really harass the opponent. And some of the pro players, notably No Tail, I think Kuroki as well, they're really, really good with Chen. So, it's like if you just ban that out, you're at least setting your team up to not have to deal with that kind of thing. So, but yeah, I was shocked though that Io didn't make the list, considering how strong he is and how the global positioning is just so strong. Highest win rate, minimum 5 games, was Tinker, 80% win, Darkseer, 80% win, Treant Protector, 77.8, sorry. Io had a 75% win, and Wind Ranger also in the 75%. So that's pretty strong. It's also shocking because Darkseer really didn't get picked till later in the tournament. I want to say almost into the quarterfinals. So, or maybe it was like around that time, because then Liquid picked it up, and then people were like, oh, this actually can still work with like a lot of combos, like, classic like Darkseer Sven, right? You vac wall into a big stun, and then the whole team just dies. It's pretty awesome. So, those still work. I think it's a lot of times he relies on farm to get some items and stuff like that, but again, being able to force positions on your opponents is strong to the pro teams. The two I wanted to mention, though, they were further down the list, was Gyrocopter, because he, like I was saying, gets picked a ton. He only got a 61.5% win rate, so it's not surprising because he was picked a lot more, but you think a strong core like that would have some better win rate. And then 17th was Alchemist. I don't have his win rate here. It's under 60% though. So, and this one was kind of interesting. It feels like so teams that played the most different heroes. So it's a little skewed, I think, because Liquid played the most games. I think because they just started so low in the lower bracket and had to play the whole way out. And they didn't. Well, like I said, they dropped one game, 2-0ing everybody, but I still think they played most. So they had 62 different heroes that they picked. So it's a good pool. Secret 58, not shocking to me, even though they went out earlier. They have a very, varied pool, and Puppy always like to do some weird drafts here and there. Chaos Esports 57, Virtus Pro with 52, which is also crazy because they went out quite early. So that again showed. I mean, maybe that was the problem. Those teams really banned out some of their better heroes, so they were having to vary up their strat a lot. And then OG with 46 different heroes. So that's a huge drop between 4 and 5 to be that far under 50 comparatively to the other teams. Again, not shocking with that. OG was... There would usually be some kind of one different hero, but it was like if they can get Io, Chen, Magnus, these were the heroes that they were picking up, like if they could, just every time. And Tiny, like I was saying, just running around the map, killing everybody. All in all, in this TI, comparatively to most, and I think this is actually a good thing, there was 114 heroes picked out of the 117. So not picked was Ursa, Coddle, and Clockwork, which I was surprised to see Ursa not picked. He was used to be pretty strong, but I guess teams are figured out a good ways against him. But it kind of just shows that the meta, almost everything works. Almost everything is worth a pick, although I feel like there was a couple Shadow Demon picks that were kind of desperate and didn't look all that strong after watching the games. But it was pretty cool to see that many heroes picked, because in previous ones it's been like under 100 or kind of that kind of thing, even lower. So the game's in a better place than it was previously. The heroes banned, there was 102 heroes banned. The amount of games, this seems kind of short, was 49 games in the main stage was played. I think I picked like 52-ish, so because like I was saying, Liquid was just 2-0ing everybody, and OG had to play some best of threes, but I think they were also got a lot of 2-0s. The shortest game was 15 minutes and 8 seconds, which is really short. Yeah, usually every TI, there's always some kind of really short game where it's just like, the one team's just getting stomped and they just call it because it's just to stop the bleeding, as it were. But the longest game was 86 minutes and 29 seconds. That was a battle. It was a very long game, and that kind of thing was where Dota gets really weird because nearly every character's level 25, so they're maxed out, they have all their best talents, and they might all have their best items. And the only thing that can really then matter is the Roshan to get the extra life and just the ability to have buyback. And then whoever gets like the jump, whoever has the better initiation and then counter initiation is probably going to win the game because everyone's strong enough to just run down, kill the towers and kill the ancient. So it gets really weird at points like that. So it's a great game to watch for sure. I thought this was also interesting because this kind of really connects up with like that there was only 49 games, and this was the most contested heroes essentially were combined picks and bans, and Alchemist was number 1 in that list for 47. So only 2 games where he was not involved in either being picked or banned, which is pretty crazy that he was just such a standout hero. Again, like I was saying, at these TIs and the gold, and if you can get online quicker than your opponents, you're going to start just rolling. Enchantress was number 2 on that list, 44. So again, only 5 games where she was not involved. Same thing with Elder Titan. So that's what I was saying. These 2 heroes were really, you saw them a lot, and there was a reason for it, just because just their flexibility and the toolkits that they offered. Tiny was 38, and then Leshrac followed up that list with 37. And as I mentioned previously, of course, there was Shadow Demon, Chen, and Lifestealer actually made a lot of appearances as a core that could be picked because he sort of works well against Gyrocopter. His rage ability blocks out magic damage, so he's got a free BKB built in. And then if you get a BKB as well, then you have a lot longer immunity and can, drain life, stand up to that kind of punishment. There was a couple, notably e.g. Arteezy gets a 4K when he was essentially had no life. He just got some lucky bashes, and it's pretty impressive. I'm sure there's a clip. You've probably seen a clip of it already. Like I was saying, just a lot of the heroes that we've talked about, or that I've talked about and highlighted here, they have a lot of abilities that influence team fights by either mitigating damage or amplifying damage. Alchemist has the area effect spell, which has a massive armor reduction. Elder Titan has the spell, like I was saying, removes armor and magic resistance. Enchantress, she's basically immune to physical attacks because it's so hard. Like when you right click on her, your attacks are slowed by a percentage of her ability. So you just stand there and look like an idiot. It's pretty hilarious. And Chen, like I was saying, controls neutral creeps, and then you can get the ones that have magic resistance, and then you can just start stacking that, so helping your team mitigate more damage. And Mirana has the ability to make your whole team disappear, which, like I was saying, in these events, positioning matters a lot. And if you just disappear briefly and they don't have the detection down, the whole team fight can go either wrong, or you can set up quickly for a team fight by making your team disappear and then just get the positioning jump on your opponents. And then also a lot of these heroes, they can be played in multiple positions. You force the other team to guess when you're drafting what you're doing, because it's like, oh, a Tiny could go here and here, Mirana can be played in support or as a core, and then it just kind of forces the other team to start thinking about their strategy more, and then maybe they draft themselves something that just doesn't work as well. And then you can switch up your own playstyle as well immediately, because they may pick something that it's like, oh, that's a good counter to our Mirana pick, but then, you're like, okay, she'll be support, boom, we pick this other guy who's a better counter to their core. And then you see this a lot at TIs and these tournaments where the drafts can really become open. I know the drafting phase is very important and is really interesting. Like I was just saying, you can see the mind game here and there. I usually don't pay, not that I don't pay too much attention, but I also find that it's like, because the drafts become very similar, it's like you start to learn what the teams are doing, let's just say. But in the beginning, you don't know as much what's going on and what they're kind of thinking. But as the tournaments always progress, you can see the kind of the tournament meta solidify. And it's like, these are the heroes people are going to be trying to target. Maybe a team has one or two where you're like, okay, let's ban this guy out because he keeps on doing this. Like their player named Hector, and he was really good on Wraith King. And then you watch a team play, and then they lose to the Wraith King, and then it's like, okay, next game, just ban that guy out. And then they don't, and you're like, dude, what are you doing? You should have banned that guy. So like I said, I don't really pay attention too much, but it is something that actually really is important. And I do like to hear the analysts talk a little bit about, essentially the main concept is like the ease of execution of the combos of the draft. Because you'll see something, say there's a Faceless Void who has the Chronosphere, and then it's like, oh, if the team was able to draft something good that works with the Chronosphere, then you'll see that in action where he'll hit the Chronosphere and then all of a sudden a bunch of stuff just gets dumped in. But if they had to kind of force themselves into that pick, then they may not have, good combos with it. They have a bunch of melee heroes and it's like, oh, you can't really run in there when the Chronosphere is happening. So that kind of stuff is really interesting. And I think some analysts are better at it than others, which, that's life, as it were. And some, of course, captains are better at it than others. And it's just something I don't really think about as much. Like if when I play, I mostly like to play single draft, random draft, or all random, which you usually get a balanced team, but you might not have like combos built in and that kind of thing. So it's always kind of interesting to see, for me anyway, what these pro teams kind of are looking at and how they want to build these combos around either a certain concept or a certain idea. This was, like I was saying, the IO, he was picked in, it's a ball of light. It was picked into like a core position, which usually was not done before. And all of a sudden, if you gave this hero some farm and he got a few items, he was starting to do some crazy stuff. And it was the first time we had seen this. And it was OG that did it. So it was pretty cool. So yeah, it's always something worth watching and kind of learning what these pros are doing. And it also helps inform you for your games because the meta's not set, which is like I was saying previously, which is great. But it's interesting to see these pros play and they'll do something that you didn't think of with a hero and you can try to execute that. But just to wrap up, I think one of the last things, so they announced that the International 10, which will be next year in 2020, it's going to be in Stockholm, Sweden, which is, again, very interesting, very cool that they're kind of trying to take it around the world a little bit, make it international. Obviously, the main reason Key Arena is being renoed, so they have to kind of go around, but it's neat that they'll be able to get this opportunity to go elsewhere. There's already esports events played around the world, Counter-Strike, League of Legends, and even Dota tournaments, but the international has always been kind of played in the one location, so it'd be cool to go. If I'm being honest. Yeah, I don't think I'm really going to say too much more about TI9. It was really great. The time zone difference was kind of bogus because I have a regular job, but like I said, I was able to watch a lot more of it than I got to watch everything I wanted to watch, either in replay or some of it live. So good luck and have fun in your own games of Dota. If you want to check out more of our episodes, you can check out our website, tomeofuselessness.com. We're also on iTunes or Spotify or anywhere else you get your podcasts. Our website has links to our Instagram and Twitter, as well as you can email us questions, comments, topic suggestions, whatever you'd like. Maybe no spam, please, but tomeofuselessness@gmail.com. Thanks for listening, and have a good one.